Tonight, many of America's farmers already feeling the pinch are worried about the possibility of more challenges.
Very significant market, long-term relationships there.
President Trump's trade war with American allies. Tariffs on imported
potatoes from Canada won't sit around and spoil if they can't be shipped to the U.S. They'll ruin them. Drama isn't that. That's the truth. And when 140,000 tons of Canadian potatoes disappeared from the American market, that's precisely what has been subtly happening. No public outcry, no huge announcement, they just stopped showing up. Why? Washington removed a 35% duty on Canadian potatoes, fresh frozen seed, and everything else on April 2nd. A $22 bag cost $30 overnight. Fries used to cost $350, but today they only cost $5.25. Additionally, Americans spend more on overcooked, floppy fries. But the Prime Minister of Canada did not object. Rather, without even looking over his shoulder, he got on an aircraft, flew to Asia, shook hands, and signed a $6 billion trade deal. The impact was immediate. The warehouses were deserted. Less was planted by farmers. The portions were reduced by diners. The worst part is still to come. Customs did not prevent the potatoes. They departed willingly, because you shouldn't be shocked when even a potato declines to do business with you when you tax your most dependable trade partner like a competitor. Prior to this tariff ploy, Canadian exporting potatoes to the U.S. was more than simply a business deal. It was a tradition. Canada shipped over 350,000 metric tons south of the border in 2024 alone, sufficient to feed 17 million households in the United States, particularly in northern states where winter lasts longer than a campaign for office. Congress runs on lobbyist coffee, much as the Minnesota diners ran on Prince Edward Island potatoes. For many years, that pipeline of potatoes was as reliable as football on a Tuesday night. The art of the tariff followed. With just one Oval Office signature, the United States began to classify spuds as illegal. Just a 35% import duty, as if potatoes were high-end timepieces with no press conference or negotiation. The outcomes were harsh. The July 2025 report from Agriculture Canada revealed a 41% decline in Canadian potatoes exports by the second quarter to the United States. Not since the 1980s has there been a decline. This divorce wasn't very public. With a tax bill attached, it was ghosting. Moreover, ghosting includes a bill for the client as well. Let's calculate. Once valued at $32,000, a 25-ton consignment of frozen fries now costs $1,200 in taxes. That represents a 35% increase in one of the most popular foods in America, consumed in excess of both common sense and broccoli. Restaurants were rushing. People who used to boast about utilizing PEI potatoes now choose less expensive domestic ones instead. What's the difference? Consumers took notice. Load texture, blotchy color, and a subtle artificial flavor that begs for mass manufacture were among the complaints that poured in. Servings in mom-and-pop restaurants began to get smaller. Passing the offering clients a full price ran the danger of alienating them, but many still departed. It was summed up by one Wisconsin regular. Fries that taste like wet cardboard cost $5. Twice a week I used to eat here. I'm packing lunch now. This is what Washington will not say aloud. Canada did not strike back. There was no introduction of counter tariffs. They didn't host heated press conferences. They just moved their potatoes to another location. The Canadian-U.S. contracts were subtly reduced by processors such as McCain and Kendish. Farmers in Alberta, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island cut back on planting by up to 25%. Storage units for coal were half empty. Additionally, on the U.S. side, importers had to deal with grudgingly shifted to homegrown potatoes because to skyrocketing expenses, forgoing the quality and stability they had depended on for decades. Not even well-known brands were exempt. In the Midwest, smaller franchises experienced a decrease in foot traffic as consumers cast their financial votes. We had no intention of switching vendors. We had to, and customers noticed in a week, stated a franchise owner from Minnesota. Ottawa took the long view while Washington pounded the tariff hammer. Canada reorganized its potato sector rather than pleading for access to the U.S. market. To serve, processors turned. Domestic supermarket chains and cooperatives. Extra crops were sent to community kitchens and food banks. Subsidies facilitated movement in provinces such as New Brunswick. Therefore, when digging them, use extreme caution. The air flows freely, much like mushrooms. Within a quarter, they will become deadly and green. As a result, retail potato prices in Canada remained stable, ranging from $450 to $4.99 per bag, although American costs increased. This steadiness gave Canadian households a little extra money for bread, milk, or eggs. In addition to maintaining domestic rates, Canada sought out new clients. Ottawa has inked significant agricultural agreements with South Korea, Indonesia, and Japan since late 2024. PEI delivered fresh potatoes to Indonesia for $8 million last year, and shipments are increasing. Thailand imported more than $4 million worth of potatoes, surpassing all non-U.S. buyers. Caribbean countries such as Panama and Trinidad each spent almost $13 million. Selling potatoes isn't the only goal here. The goal is to increase local economies and create jobs. In one freezing plant in Charlottetown, made a contract with a Japanese distributor, added a new processing line, hired 45 full-time employees, and increased its purchases of potatoes from nearby farmers. In the past, even such unsightly Grade 2 potatoes were used as animal fodder. Resilience is the aim, not retaliation. Canada gained knowledge. You're not in a relationship if your largest client may become antagonistic every election cycle. It's a hostage scenario for you. Diversification, however, is not a secret. The development of new markets takes time. It costs $20 to ship potatoes to Jakarta or Tokyo. Compared to shipping them to Buffalo, it costs 35% more per ton. Blocks are still in place in South Korea. After that, qualified potatoes are grouped according to size. Fries are currently allowed, however, raw potatoes must wait at customs. Establishing new supply chains is feasible for major businesses like McCain. It's a risk for smaller farmers. Due to the lack of direct foreign buyers, they are dependent on large processors who control the time and location of their sales. Canada's turn is real, though. It is demonstrated by the numbers. Canadian potato exports to the United States have decreased 41% by July 2025. 7% and total U.S. potato imports fell by over 20% as a result of what economists kindly refer to as policy-induced friction. However, trust is a larger story that lies beneath the numbers. Canada did not slam the doorway. They simply ceased knocking. Because you're seen like a threat, the instant politics become heated after decades of being portrayed as a trustworthy collaborator. You eventually stop appearing. It's not necessary for trust to break with a loud crash. Sometimes, like the smell of fries that once tasted better, it simply goes away without a trace. Thus,